let me first give you the context. Since 2011, swisspeace has the mandate by the Swiss Foreign Ministry to work on the topic of archives and dealing with the past. And one of the ideas is basically to work on emerging topics and to initiate exchange at the international level. So back in 2014 and 15, we realized through to our own work as well as through exchanges with our partners, let's say in the field, as well as the Swiss Foreign Ministry, that often archives worldwide that are relevant for dealing with the past processes are at risk, be it because of their political nature or due to lack of resources or also other reasons. So we then decided to organize a public conference on the topic of securing archives at risk. And we had in the end more than 100 participants from more than 12 countries that attended. And one of the results of this meeting was that it would be important to focus more concretely also on the topic of safe havens for archives at risk, particularly also because the Swiss Foreign Ministry, but also our partners have realized that this is really an issue that has been coming up, but where there was not yet that much exchange and no, let's say, collection of good practices and lessons learned have happened. So a year later, in October 2016, we organized an international expert working meeting with about 30 participants. Compared to the public conference, this was a closed meeting, and we tried to ensure that all relevant stakeholders were there at the table. So we had basically the key stakeholders, the sending institutions, as well as what we call the receiving institutions. So sending institutions are basically those institutions that are looking actively for safe havens for archives at risk, and hosting institutions are those institutions that offer a safe haven. And we also invited experts on the topic, as well as international organizations which could potentially have a lead in that topic. So during this 1.5 meeting, the participants decided to create a working group, which will then take forward the recommendations that have been identified during the meeting. And the meeting group then met for the first time in January 2017 and discussed how they would like to take on this task, and then finally came up with a work plan. What then happened was, during a period of 6 months, the different members, they drafted different documents, and swisspeace, as let's say the organization that was responsible for coordinating the work, digested all the different documents into one document, and this was then the first draft of these guiding principles on safe havens for archives at risk. What then followed was a phone conference and a lot of back and forth, many revisions, and then in January 2018 we decided to organize a public consultation. Because, on the one hand, of course, we wanted to make the document known and really spread it in our networks. And on the other hand, of course, we wanted to improve the quality of the document and also enhance its legitimacy. What was clear for us at the very beginning, since we were basically a self-appointed working group who didn't have any official mandate to draft such a document, we were totally aware that we need to have, let's say, an official body that endorses this document. So that's why already at the very early stage we try to ensure the representation of UNESCO as well as the International Council on Archives. And since we knew that at UNESCO it's going to be a more long-term process, we first followed the track to reach endorsement by by the International Council on Archives. And basically in spring 2018, we, through our contact, through the representative of the ICA, we were able to submit the document to the ICA, and then they also had different levels of consultations, and then finally in October 2018 the document was endorsed by the executive board of the ICA. And I mean, the process of course is not over yet. We're still working on finalizing the commentaries to the guiding principles, and we also still aim at having the document endorsed by additional, let's say, international actors, as for instance the different UN special rapporteurs. And potentially we'll also evaluate the track of having the document potentially endorsed by UNESCO. We had what I earlier called like the main stakeholders, those that like representatives from sending institutions as well as hosting institutions. So there, for us, it was important to have both governmental and non-governmental representatives, because they bring in different challenges. I mean, a sending institution, which is, let's say, an NGO, is in a different position than, let's say, if a governmental institution looks for a safe haven. On the other hand, also hosting institutions, I mean, if it is a state, basically states are here to stay, so they are more in a more, let's say, stable situation when it comes to funding or finances. So that's why for us it was important to have governmental as well as non-governmental representatives. So they basically brought in their practical experience on safe haven, because we identified representatives that already had practical experience with safe haven corporations or safe haven agreements. Then we had like experts with very specific knowledge. So in our case, there was, for instance, an archivist who has been involved internationally in many safe haven agreements. She really brought in, I mean, her own experience as an archivist, as well as, of course, her network also to UNESCO and the ICA. And then we had representatives of the UNESCO and the ICA, and they also brought in their own expertise as, let's say, archivists, but mainly also on how to, you know, how the ICA works, how even to ensure that the document can be consulted and potentially endorsed by the ICA. So it was really important to have these people in too. And I mean, of course, we also had, let's say, the Swiss Foreign Ministry as a donor, but also as a partner with experience in hosting archives at risk. I think there are 3 lessons learned that I have. The first one is that the process is more important than the result, because basically, I mean, swisspeace could have written the documents, the document at our own desk, but then what would it have been? I mean, it would have been just a document, and in terms of outreach, in terms of quality, in terms of ownership, it would just have been a paper. So it was really important to include all these stakeholders and to ensure ownership, and so basically, process is more important than the result. And then second, it basically just takes time. I mean, we started back in 2015 with the public conference, and now the document was endorsed in October 2018, and we're still not, I mean, process is not concluded yet. And the third one is that it is important to include all important stakeholders very early in the process. So also, as I said, to include or to ensure ownership not only of the one who is coordinating the process, but basically all of the people that are involved, and to ensure that all the different types of expertise that are necessary in such a process. Let's say funding, expertise, but also network, and so that all of these different types of expertises and knowledge and the different type of knowledge is included in such a process.